Okay, that's the wrong screen. Let me just bring back the. All right, there you go. Starting off with Magic the Gathering, TD Finance, hashtag not your financial advice. I'm just gonna take that banner right away because it was such a nuisance last time. All right, starting off with Magic Standard. As you can see, most of the cards are stabilizing in prices. The winners from, or rather the losers from last week, are just dwindling even further down because no one's interested as much until we get to see the correct price for these cards. Like, for example, Mox Jasper, Draco Genesis, and Ugin, Eye of the Storms, even Miss Rice Village, which was one of the hypest lands in the set, are starting to dwindle down in their price. Even Rot Curse Rakshasa is not looking good just because, of course, the hype is just not there. The performance is just not there. No one was seeing a lot of play over the past week when they got hold of the cards. Even Voice of Victory, if you look at that card, that got a lot of hype over the past weekend, but now it dropped out in value, which is pretty normal. The most interesting card that I'm looking at is the last two cards in the loser side, which is Teval and Taigam. Those are very interesting cards to look at $2 for mythics. I think that's a steal, by the way. So if you're looking to get some of these cards, you better get them right now. I think there are a couple at Top Deck. Be sure to visit our website if you want to order these cards. But without further ado, let's look at the winners for this week. Starting off with Terror of the Peaks from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It's basically a reprint from Corset 21. It's a dragon. Of course, dragons are very hype in this set for Tarkir. So some of the dragons from the previous sets are starting to look really good. And Terror of the Peaks sitting back at $40. This was not, uh, you know, everyone's just looking forward to this part because sitting at $40, this mythic is very powerful. And we're seeing a lot of this card in some of these commander decks, like the Ur Dragon, Eshki, the new precon deck from Tarkir, Timur's Roar, as well as Mirim, Sentinel Worm, which also spiked up during the spoilers with the precons because, fortunately or unfortunately, this wasn't reprinted. There was no sign of the card being reprinted, so that's why it spiked up in value. But it's stabilizing. But we're talking about Terror of the Peaks. It's a very good card to have, especially you're playing some of these commanders that are just big haymakers when you cast your Terror of the Peaks. So that's why the price is going up. So if you have a bunch of Terror of the Peaks, I would say you could sell them right now if you're not a big fan of dragons. Otherwise, you could just keep them. They'll definitely hold out in price, especially since Outlaws has been out for quite some time. So we're not going to be seeing another reprint anytime soon for that card. Up next is the hypest card in Magic right now. It's Corey Steelcutter from Tarkir. It says Flurry, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 Might Monk creature token with prowess. You may then attach this equipment to it, which gives +1/+1 trample and haste, which is insane. If you look at the history of this card, pre-orders, it was sitting around $2 to $3. If you were able to order from Top Deck, you just got yourself a huge steal because this card is going bonkers. $16 right now for a rare that everyone thought it was trash. Turns out it wasn't because it's very good. And as you can see at the graph, it's holding its price even after pre-orders, or rather the pre-release. So the reason for that is it's all over the place. It's in standard, pioneer, and modern. All kinds of versions of prowess is on the loose. So Is It Prowess is a very powerful deck right now. Everyone's loving it. It can even fend off most of the decks right now in standard, which is the Esper Pixie or even the Blue Eye Control. Because sometimes when you get board wipe, you kind of feel bad. But with the Corey Steel Cutter, you can always just keep on the pressure by just casting multiple spells per turn. And then in Rakros Prowess, it's also pretty good because it's a much faster version of the standard variant. And then in modern, it's even way faster with some of the powerful cards in that format. Up next is Stock Up from Aether Drift.
Oh my god.
Uncommon, seeing at $11. Who would have thought? This card is pretty insane right now. We're seeing like flashbacks from Corset 20 where Veil of Summer was revealed, and everyone just started playing that card because it was just an insane value. And to think that this is a 3 mana sorcery, it's doing a lot of work in the marketplace right now with a $5 uptick. Of course, everyone's playing it standard. You got Esper Pixie going for the control variant, and you also have the Is It Prowess. There's a lot of builds that you can look at for this deck or this archetype, but stock up is looking to be a staple in this deck. And of course, it's also a staple in most of your blue legacy decks, such as Omnitel, which is a combo deck where you just cheat in Omniscience on like turn 2, turn 3, and then you just win the game right off the bat. So with the card Show and Tell, which means you can just cheat in any card that you want from your hand. Both players, by the way. Usually, your opponent wouldn't have like a very powerful version of his card because you just cheat in your Omniscience and you just win from there. So that's why the price is going up for this card. And we just went through a ban list, so we didn't see any changes. Not a lot for standard, which means, of course, people are still going to be looking for this card as we move on. And of course, our sealed product of the day, we just talked about this last week. It's Starkir, the collector booster display. The reason why I brought this back is because even though it went down in market price, as you can see in the screen right here, it's already at 300, 350. It kind of dipped down. But if you look at the most recent sale, this is the most interesting part. The most recent sale is at 390, which is insane, which means people are still buying this product for that kind of price. So that means that people are still looking to chase these amazing cards right here on the screen. You got the Fetch Lands, the Dragon Scale foil versions, which go around 200 to 240 USD, and then you have the Ugin as well as the Elspeth Halo foil showcase. These are very gorgeous to look at, and Ugin is like the most chased version. So if you get to pull one of these, you basically get your money back just by opening a box. So that's why everyone's going crazy by looking for this product right here. So if you get a hold of some of the collector boosters, make sure to crack some packs, and maybe you can get some money back or more after that. Or if you're one of those hoarders, you could definitely hold on to the Tarkir collector boosters, especially if you're ordering cases, because this is a very interesting product to keep in the long run, because it has a pretty good lineup of cards to actually look out for. So it'll definitely hold out its price in the next couple of years if you're that kind of person to hold out. So that's our take for the market watch on Magic. Let's move on to One Piece and Cardfight Vanguard.
Okay, thank you very much there, Jerson. So here we go first with Sanjin from OP07. You know the card. If the number of Dawn on your field is less than a 2 less than your opponent's, give this character -3 cost. And of course, a blocker. Part of the Straw Hat package and a searchable 2K counter. Also has a very powerful effect early if you are behind in Dawn. So it is a fairly expensive SR because of course Purple Straw Hat is the best deck right now, and there are multiple versions of Straw Hat. So this card currently only has one printing. So I think if more decks will opt to use the Straw Hat package, I think the price will go up. Next here would be Kuzan from OPO2-096 on play draw 1 and on attack give one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. Currently at around 50 yen. However, it's because of the the current reprint in the PRB booster premium the best, and it is currently seeing play as the replacement for Ice Age in black decks because of the newest ban list. So I will expect this card to get more expensive as more people opt to put in more of this card as a replacement for Ice Age and more black decks show up their ugly head. And lastly, of course, another Kuzan here, the SEC OPO2. Again, 50 yen. It seems small at the moment. However, it is seeing success as the replacement for Moria 8 in black decks. And hence, I think this card will go up. The more people will play more black decks, as I think Lucci is even showing up more and more in flagships and even major tournaments. So I think this card will once again go up, but right now there are a lot of supply because of the PRB01 reprint. So next would be Cardfight Vanguard. Okay, here we go for Card Fight Vanguard. First up is Vadrock Dragon from DCBT08. I know, from DCBT04, I mean. DCBT08 was just released in Japan, and with it came new support for the Blandemire deck. On first reveal, people were skeptical on whether this deck would make, I would, where in the new support would make the deck more relevant in the current meta. But then last week in Singapore, a major tournament happened wherein three of the top eight spots were taken and won by Blanc de Meyer. So people are picking up their own pieces and trying it out if this deck is really as good as it is purported to be. Next here is Stealth Fiend Shenri, one of the more generic draw engines for the Dragon Empire decks. It has always been expensive ever since its release. And then, despite a reprint being confirmed in the recent in the one of the newest Start Deck Zero Tendo, don't expect its price to drop anytime soon, as more people are looking to wanting to get their own playsets. So, and then lastly here is Sun Presents Forward and Revertis. Previously a very expensive piece of cardboard, as people ran it in both Dragon Empire and Dark States to help in their early aggression. But it has slowly started dropping in price as decks stop running it in favor of more actual support for their decks. And then lately, a reprint has been confirmed in Festival Booster 2025, which may drive the price down even lower. So if you have some extra copies laying about, sell them now while the price is still high. So that's it for Card Fight Vanguard.
All right. Thank you for that, Anjo. Let's move on to the next segment, which is Top Deck of the Week. All right, Top Deck of the Week brought to you by Top Deck Games. Starting off with Magic Standard, we got the Is It Prowess right now. It's the hottest deck in Tarkir, and I'm all for it. It's actually pretty exciting to see this archetype go up again because it's an existing deck, not going to lie. Uh, People have tried it before, but they weren't able to make the crack in the metagame. I guess you can bring it in your FNMs, in your standard showdowns, but in terms of like competition, like in standard challenges or even in regional championships. I think the deck kind of struggled back then, but now with Tarkir, it got a new upgrade. It's the Cory Steel Cutter. It's such an amazing card to have, especially with all of your creatures that have prowess, and all you have to do is just chain your spells to trigger the cutter. Make a monk token with prowess and haste and trample. Like, why Wizards? Why would you print this kind of card? It's super annoying to deal with. And of course, it's also playing stock up. So you can refill your hand. You can look for more of your steel cutters, more of your prowess cards, or more of your cantrips just to recur and just keep the ball rolling on the pressure. So because with the prowess, you just make your creatures just big, big, and big. And then it's just difficult for your opponent to deal with. Of course, why would you want to play this deck? It's very explosive, especially if you curve out with some of your best cards like the Seal Cutter, even the Swift Spears, and the Storm Chaser's talent. So you're going to be amassing big amounts of damage in just one turn. So, and if you're a fan of like skill intensive decks, this is one of them actually. Even though it may sound like straightforward, you still need to sequence your cards very properly if you want to win like games as well. So because not only does it have cantrips and pump spells, it also has counter spells like Spell Pierce or even Negate in the sideboard if you want to have control in the game. And then you have card selection with, aside from stock up, you have Ren's Resolve, which you kind of need to choose some of these cards. So it's not like you get to draw two, right? So exiling two cards, you might end up playing only one of them depending on how your hand goes or how the game goes. So that's one of the things that you need to take note when you're trying to play this deck. If you're a big fan of fast games, though, this is the deck for you. If of course, if you're already into mono red, this is very easy to get into as a deck. Of course, budget friendly. If you already have the mono red deck, you could just switch directly into blue red, splashing blue for those colors. And then, so budget wise, it's easy to get into. And then the sideboard, it's also very easy to manipulate, especially as the metagame starts to shape up for Tarkir. And pros and cons of playing this deck. Starting off with the pros, it's low curve, high damage. You just chain a bunch of spells like 1 mana, 2 mana, and then you just basically kill your opponent on like turn 2, turn 3, or even turn 4 at that point. And then it has a strong card selection or card draw with ops, stock up, and Ren's resolve. So it's pretty easy to dig through your spells and or lands depending on how the game goes. So it's pretty fun to play with. And then it's highly synergistic with each spell because you just have to play your prowess creatures, and then they just get bigger and bigger every time you chain your spells. And then it's pretty solid against these slow decks like the Zur domain. It kind of takes some time. They have to ramp up to their overlords, to the beanstalks, or even the ley line, right? So you definitely have a turn or two to definitely punish them with their life total. uh, Biggest weakness about these decks is it's very weak to board wipes, especially since temporary lockdown is still legal in the format, which can definitely take care of the Core Steel Cutter. So you got to be careful in committing multiple copies because they can literally sweep the floor if you're not too careful. Of course, it's very vulnerable to spot removal as well. Dimir and Esper Pixie are still some of the top decks in the metagame, so you got to be careful in managing your resources, your creatures. You don't want to throw everything down the toilet if you're dealing against these decks because they are very efficient in dealing some of the aggressive decks right now in standard. And then land draws can be quite clunky depending on how you manage your card manipulation with ops and stock up. Sometimes you can get unlucky with multiple land draws, but the deck definitely needs those land drops for you to chain those spells. So you got to be careful with what cards you want to keep, especially when you cast op. So be mindful of that. And of course, very challenging matchups against obscure life gain mid range decks, such as Blue White Control is one of the annoying matchups because not only does it have board wipe, it also has life gain. So, and then in the sideboard, they have cards like Authority of the Consuls, which definitely shuts down your Steel Cutters right off the bat because it just turns your monks tap, and then he gains a bunch of life from that. So that's pretty much the big downs on playing this deck. Now, of course, final thoughts. It's a very aggressive tempo deck. So if you're a big fan of aggro tempo, just like how we featured the blue white Convoke deck from Jico from Davao. Congrats. Shout outs to Davao, by the way, for this. If you're a big fan of this archetype, definitely recommend this deck for you, especially when it comes to timing and sequences of your cards. It's not as straightforward as your mono red variant or even the Gruul variant. Definitely take some time to practice this, but if you get the hang of it, you're definitely going to be a menace to deal with, especially in your Friday Night Magics or even in your standard showdowns. So, especially since it's playing the slick shot show off, it's definitely kind of all in with the prowess package. So, you definitely want to close out games as fast as possible. But at the same time, you also need to know how to play around those slow games where you want to fix your hands in such a way where you'll definitely catch your opponent off guard when he starts to tap out by playing his spells. So that is the top deck of the week for Magic. Let's move on to Cardfight Vanguard and One Piece card game.
Okay, thank you very much there, Jerson. So here we go with Green Yellow Law, which was used by Ives in the this week's meetup battle. So let's see what makes this deck a super strong deck. So of course, Law's signature attacks, Room, and Shambles. So this is one of the newest iteration of the popular captain, Trafalgar Law, and similar in nature to his red-green counterpart from OPO 1. He uses the same effect, which is if you have a total cost of characters 5 or more, you can return one of your characters on the field to your hand and then reveal the top card of your life. And if it is a supernova, which costs 5 or less, you may play it for free. So yeah, it basically just cheats in a big creature.
Every deck is cheating things out for free.
So of course, you use your yellow cards to fix the top card of your life to make sure that the leader skill is able to hit something that you want to hit, which are the powerful green supernovas, which are used to control the board, such as Jury Bonnie here being able to tap tap down a character, and the character and the Dawn will not be able to untap on the opponent's turn. Cavendish untapping you to Dawn when it attacks, and of course the two versions of Tarfarga Law. Pros, of course, early call, it's just cheating in a creature. Life gain because you're yellow. Hand fixing because, of course, most of your yellow cards have the effect of adding a card from life and then putting a card from hand to life. So basically, you know what card you're drawing next. And of course, green is just good at board control with multiple rest effects, and Kid 8 being a powerful tank. The cons, however, the deck requires you to have a total cost of 5 or more on the field, so it is very susceptible to board control. Otherwise, your your leader is just a vanilla. Life gain is not as powerful as yellow decks because there is only one card here that actually just gains life, and it also takes away a card in your hand. And if you have no life fix, you are blind calling from life pile, or worse, your leader is vanilla. Yeah. So, a very powerful leader, green yellow law is no joke because cheating powerful allies is always powerful. The deck has shown a lot of promise since OPO 10 and continuing to have a presence in flagships until OP 11. However, because of the recent news of the block number system or rotation for you Magic fans, this deck relies heavily on cards from the early days of One Piece. If you can notice, Kid 8, Trafalgar Law, and the other Trafalgar Law from the ST are from block 1. So meaning that whenever a rotation comes around, it may not be as powerful post-rotation because most of its powerful engines will be gone. Nonetheless, the deck currently is a strong deck and relies on proper sequencing and early advantage to take games. So I will suggest this deck to bring during the end of the month here in Top Tech Games for the flagship battle. So now it's time for Card Fight Vanguard, and just in time for Card Vanguard Day, Anjo.
Okay, here we go. This is Card Fight Vanguard top deck of the week. Favernil. I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Okay, so BTO7 really can't come any sooner. So what's new? Favernil finally has a new form in the form of Favernil Rheingold. This new form gives your front row plus 10k power and an extra critical with its own effect, and with its own effect helps you set up the required 13 grades in Soul fast. Once you have 13 grades in Soul, Favernil can restand at the end of the battle. While CB2 is a steep cost, Rheingold can instead pay this by putting any Favernil card from your hand, which is the old Favernil or Favernil Rheingold, for free, so you can still have plays even if you have no counterblast available. So, what are the strengths? Strengths are thanks to the new Favernil, thanks to the old support of Favernil, Rheingold has multiple ways to activate Persona Ride, ensuring you get the plus 10k boost to the front row. Also, Rheingold also gives another plus 10k boost, making sure your attacks hit hard. So, what are the weaknesses? While Dark States is the nation of being able to soul charge cards immediately, it is still possible to not achieve the 13 grades in soul. So that's why you should always make sure to keep an opening hand where you can get up to 13 grades on the first G3 turn. Next is the deck. No, sorry. The deck tends to run out of hand cards as there is no inherent card draw. And due to the amount of grade 3s, because you really want to get 13, the deck tends to have issues guarding attacks. So as you can see in the picture, why can't I hold all of these grade 3s? Okay, so final thoughts. It's a very hard-hitting deck due to Persona Ride plus Rheingold's boost, and has a tendency to brick, not being able to hit the 13 grades required to unlock Rheingold's effect, and easily folds to more aggressive decks due to the amount of grade 3s it runs. So it's a cheap, easy to play deck, but if you have a better budget, don't actually play these, please.
Move on to the last segment of the stream, which is Judge Call. Take it away, Koji. All right, let's see if we can brew up your brain cells, guys, for today's Judge Call. It's an old ruling that we're going to be bringing up, but it's going to be quite relevant since we saw some cards right here in Tarkir where that ruling is going to be brought up once again. Starting off with Khalil casting Shiko, Paragon of the Way, that will trigger its effect on entering the battlefield. That says when it enters, exile target non-land card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard, copy it, then you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So he's going to be targeting Valky, God of Lies, which is a double-faced modal card from Kaldheim that has a backside of Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter. That's a 7 mana Planeswalker. So the question is, can Khalil cast its backside Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter?
Yes.
All right, that was a very simple yes right there. Yes, good evening, Mr. Francis. Yeah, you're just in time for our judge call. Let's move on to why that is the case. Starting off with this ruling from Comparative Rules 712.11b. A player casting a modal double face card or a copy of a modal double face card as the spell chooses which face they are casting before putting it on the stack. So this is very reminiscent of Bring to Light. People used to play this back in Pioneer or even in Modern, where they search for a double face modal card and then they cast the backside to get a lot of value. So this was pretty much updated when Wizards printed the Kaldheim because people complained about how powerful the double face cards were back in the day. But yeah, this is the updated rulings right now for how it works. So yes, he can cast it for free. What the backside of Valky, which is Tibalt, even though it's 7 mana. Because when the game sees Valky and then the trigger is put on the stack, he will count Valky as the 3 or less mana value, and then he gets to choose which side he wants to cast. Because he says without paying its mana cost, so he can cast the backside. So that is the judge rule or the judge call for day for Magic. Let's move on to One Piece and Cardfight Vanguard.
Okay, here we have a very easy to judge call here. So in the finals of the Philippines qualifiers, congrats. Dave plays Ben Beckham, OP09-009, and uses the on-play effect, which says on play, trash up to one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less. And then uses the on-play effect, targeting Crocus, which is the 6 cost with 8,000 power. Realizing his mistake, he takes back his decision and wants to target Doberman the 2 cost instead. His opponent, however, objects, claiming that Dave has already made his decision and Beckman's effect whiffs or does not resolve because Crocus cannot be affected because it has a power with more than 6,000. So as a judge, how would you rule in this scenario?
I guess I would say if I were to make the judge call for this, I would say since the wording specifically says trash up to one of your opponent's characters, and then you already chose
Mm.
a character, that I might say that would consider a legit uh, action,
Mm.
which means he definitely missed the opportunity of killing the other one instead, even though it's an illegal target. It's still a target nonetheless, so in a sense, it's kind of legal,
Mm.
if you get what I mean. So,
So let's see. Yeah, no, the answer here would be just give a warning to Dave. However, the game state is still repairable because, again, Crocus is an illegal target because
Okay.
it doesn't have 6,000 or less power. So, and since nothing else occurred in the said time frame, it is a repairable game state. And in this case, the gameplay would be rewound to the point of the illegal action, which is targeting Crocus, and they will be told to choose a proper target this time. So the reason I chose this is because there was a very big issue on Twitter where in the regionals for NA or in North America, the player targeted, like this one, targeted a character with 7,000 power. And the opponent complained, rather the Twitter complained that why was the player allowed to rewind the decision because for them apparently they denied the other player of winning the 10,000 peso card. But of course, as a judge, you have to make sure that the game state is correct. And since Crocus was never a legal target in the first place, you just rewind it to the proper until a proper target is chosen.
all right. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Not cool though,
Not
with the issue and all. Yeah, but it is a competitive card game nonetheless. So let's move on to Vanguard. Take it away, G-Bro number 2.
Okay, here we go. Aaron has Evil Bishop Gastile as the Vanguard and 2 empty front row circles, while the opponent has Great Composure Dragon. Gastile says at the beginning of the battle phase, CB1 and then activate any of the effects, which the relevant here is all of your opponent's auto abilities do not activate until end of turn. While Great Composure says at the beginning of your opponent's battle phase, this unit gets plus 3,000 for every open circle. So at the start of the battle phase, both effects trigger, but since you are the first, since Aaron is the third player, he activates the effect of Gastille, choosing all of your opponent's auto abilities do not activate.
Hmm.
After all of the effects resolve, how much power does the opponent's Great Composer Dragon have? So it starts as 12,000 and again gains plus 3,000 for every open circle. But then Gastille says no auto abilities can activate until end of turn.
Mhm. So I would say 18. I
18.
think that would be the number for me.
Okay, so yes, that is correct. It's
Hey.
18. Gastille only stops auto abilities from activating, not resolving. When moving to the start of the battle phase, both of their auto abilities have already activated and will still resolve even if Gastille stops them from activating. So once all effects resolve, Great Composure will have 18,000 power.
I see. All right. Thank you for that. Gabriel number 2. That was a pretty quick succession of judge calls. This is TD Bapo and the G Bros signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out. Woohoo.